And now here he is, Mr. This Is Your Life himself, Ralph Edwards. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. Well, hello again, and greetings from Hazel Bishop, who each week brings you This Is Your Life. And our deep thanks to the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, ladies and gentlemen, for rewarding us with one of their beautiful Emmys. And you who have been our guests have made this possible, and we certainly want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. We're very proud of this. Now, our very special greetings go to our principal subject tonight, who, like all the rest of you here in our audience at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood, is probably thinking, this couldn't happen to me. Well, tonight it is happening to you. Sir, this is your life. Gregor Shelkan of Boston, Massachusetts. Oh, yes, oh, yes. We singled you out not tonight, but a long time ago. For your presence here in our audience tonight, we're grateful for the collaboration of your good friend, David Putterman of New York. He's right down there, too. He invited you to the program, and to State Senator Daniel Rudstein of Boston, who suggested your life as an inspiring example to all of us. Hello, sir. Hello. Gregor Shelkan. You're pretty excited about this, aren't you? You just... I know it's a surprise, isn't it? Now, you come over and sit down here, please. He can't say anything, this fella. You're going to...
Do we have to go into my past? Can we start with Los Angeles?
Can we start with Los Angeles and go from there? Sit down, and we'll work it out together. He says, why go in the past? Let's start from here. You will help us relive the turbulent milestones of your life. A life, come on, way back here and relax, full of musical promise, interrupted by hatred and by prejudice, that has found haven and fruition in the land of promise, America. How are you, Gregor Shelkan?
I'm fine, thank you.
You're coming out of it now, aren't you?
I'll complete my speech.
You thought you were out here to sing in San Francisco, a lot of things. Well,
I'm not a speaker at all. I'm a singer.
Well, that's fine.
I lost completely my speech.
Yeah. We're happy to have someone who has lost his speech for the time being. It gives me a chance to jump right into your life. We're going to leap halfway around the world to Libau in Latvia and turn the clock back to 1915. This is your life, Gregor Shelkan. Libau, the southernmost Russian port on the Baltic Sea, was still under the rule of the Tsar at the time of your birth on December 11th, 1915. Your brother and sisters called you Grisha, didn't they? Grisha? That's the Russian nickname for Gregor, I believe, is it not? Yes. What did your father do there in Libau, Gregor Shelkan?
Oh, he was first. I had to do something with seltzer water, you know.
Seltzer, sort of a soft drink?
Soft drink producer, yeah.
Establishment he had.
And the whole family worked in the same business.
That's a wonderful occupation. Got all the soft drinks you could drink?
All the soft drinks.
The first 3 years of your life, Gregor, are spent under the constant threat of the Kaiser's invading armies, a portent to tragedy that was to reap its grim reward many years later. Now, you had one brother and 4 sisters, didn't you? Here's a picture, Gregor. Probably the last one taken of the whole family together. What happened to your father and mother, your sisters and your brother? Would you like to tell us, sir?
From this picture are only 2 sisters left.
2 sisters. Those are your sisters, Bluma and Gold, aren't they?
Yes, they are in Israel.
Israel. They're still living in Israel?
Yes, they left the children there, and they're there, and they have their own families. One sister has 5 sons, 4 sons born. The one is she adopted from Europe, and then and my other sister, Bluma, in Tel Aviv, has 1 son.
They're in Israel. Your father and mother, 2 sisters and brother, were exterminated by the Nazis. Is that right, sir? We're getting ahead of our story. These are the early 20s, and Latvia is an independent and free nation. At the age of 6, you're singing alto in the choir of the Libau Synagogue, dreaming, no doubt, of someday being a great and famous singer. But your father and mother had other hopes for you.
That's right. They wanted Grisha to become a rabbi, so they sent him to the Talmud Torah school on the Helenenstrasse in Libau.
A voice from your childhood and youth, Gregor. Whose is it, you know?
There's not many left, but...
a good friend of your student days
like a singer.
In far-off Latvia. Now Cantor, of the Park Synagogue in Cleveland, Ohio, Cantor Simon Bermanis. And here he is, Cantor Bermanis, the handsome man.
You know, I have brought a snapshot I'd like to show you. You and all the other students at the Talmud Torah in Libau. You know this picture.
That was a great class, and here that was one of the outstanding rabbis in Libau. My uncle, Rabbi Berl Rau, who was a great scholar.
Well, it wasn't all just studies for you young fellas there in Libau, was it, Cantor Bermanis?
Mr. Edwards, we had a lot of fun as boys. We had rather carefree youth.
Good.
After school, we used to go to the seashore for swimming, and then we used to take walks to the mall. And when they had a few pennies in our pocket, which was not too often, we used to go to Berman's kiosk, Cantoras, for respect for
his parents
ice cream and candies.
With your soft drinks and his ice cream, you must have had a real fine time. How did Gregor do with his studies, Cantor Bermanis?
Well, he did very well. He was very much interested in Talmudic studies, but his dreams was always to singing. He was hoping and praying that he will be a great singer one day because he had such a beautiful voice as a boy.
Yes, but your parents couldn't afford to give you the vocal training necessary, could they, Gregor? You actually learned watch repairing as a trade, didn't you?
Oh, yes. I had an uncle who was a great watchmaker, and there I sneaked in, and started. I was very interested in watchmaking.
Surely.
To make a watch again go. It was something perfect, like a human being, with a heart. All of a sudden, the watch is working.
Great
and I was
expression
thrilled.
of
That's
your
right.
talent.
I liked it and loved it.
What happened then, Cantor Bermanis?
Well, as I recall, in 1932, Grisha was singing at a relief concert in Libau for some organization, and there was Professor Spector.
Very good memory.
There was Professor Spector from the Vienna Conservatory of Music. He came there for vacation. He was also from the same town, and there he heard him sing. And he was so thrilled and fell so much in love with his voice that he arranged for a scholarship at the Vienna Conservatory of Music. And there we lived together on Getreidemarkt 18 with Matilda Hagenauer for many years. We had a lot of fun, a lot of trouble too.
Number one.
And so the dream,
Nothing to eat.
the dream begins to take form. Thank you very much, Cantor Simon Bermanis of Cleveland. Thank you, sir. 1932, 34, 36. These are your student years in Vienna, Gregor Shelkan. Years of preparation so that the promise of a great career on the concert stage and in opera might be fulfilled. But it was far from easy, wasn't it, Gregor?
Wasn't so easy.
The stomach as well as the spirit must be satisfied. Many times there's not enough money to pay the baker for even one loaf of bread. Now, of course, you could pay for the bare necessities with your watchmaking. That always came in handy, didn't it?
I heard Gregor sing and appointed him soloist at the Seitenstetten-Tempel in Vienna.
Another voice spanning the years. Whose is it?
Kurt.
He was at that time leading conductor of the Vienna Kultusgemeinde, now professor of music at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. You haven't seen him for over 15 years. Here he is, Professor Kurt Frederick. Here he is, Professor Frederick.
I am so happy to see you.
This job you gave Gregor, Mr. Frederick, sort of helped him out with the baker and the land.
Well, it wasn't much as money goes, but it took off the pressure, and Gregor could devote all his energies to singing. And even a good singer needs something on his stomach.
That's right. I must say, in the moment I met him and his family, his great father, everything was easy for me. I had definite meals, and could really study. And I must say here, right here publicly, that's not far, but 6 months ago, I got a letter from Kurt that he's dedicating the whole library of liturgical music to me. And I received it was free, no payment for it, even here in the United States. Even I haven't seen him since, I think, 1938.
Been about 15 years. After his studies in Vienna were completed, what about that?
He became a member of the opera company in Biel,
Vienna,
in Switzerland, and created there some of his favorite parts, the Phantom, in Mary Barzo Windsor, Manrico in the Conservatory. He made quite a name of him.
How long did you stay there in Switzerland, Gregor?
I stayed there for 1 season. And then I
You returned to Vienna, isn't it?
I returned to Vienna and returned to the same place, to the Great Sulzer Temple. And then I had to go back to Latvia to do my duties to our country as a soldier.
Right.
And that was the reason I went.
And you gave lots of concerts, and the future looked
Right.
very bright until March 11, 1938, when Adolf Hitler led his soldiers over the Austrian frontier.
Came into Vienna.
As the sign of the swastika spreads across Austria, bringing with it the Fuhrer's persecution of the Jews, you, Gregor Shelkan, return to your native Latvia, to the capital city of Riga, where full of promise and full of hope, you begin your brilliant singing career anew. Thank you, Professor Kurt Frederick of the University of New Mexico. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We'll return to This Is Your Life, Gregor Shelkan of Boston, in just a moment.
Ladies, here's something I hope you won't forget. There's nothing like a new shade of lipstick to brighten your spirits, give you a real lift. I can assure you that Hazel Bishop's exciting new lipstick shades will give you the biggest lift of all. That's because all Hazel Bishop colors are now made with Hazel Bishop's sensational new lipstick formula that's creamier than any, longer lasting than any. And unlike ordinary brands, Hazel Bishop lipstick stays bright and vivid from the time you put it on until you wash or cream it off. Here's lovely Joanne Jordan to prove it.
Thank you, Bob. Yes, just make a mark across the palm of your hand with Hazel Bishop lipstick. Then, across it with the lipstick you're accustomed to using. Blot thoroughly until no more red lip prints come off. Then rub the tissue across both of them as hard as you can. And as you see, my Hazel Bishop lipstick is still bright and vivid. But the other, well, it's practically all rubbed off.
Thank you, Joanne. Now, ladies, when your Hazel Bishop lipstick stays bright and vivid after a test like that, well, it's obvious it's going to look lovely on your lips, hours longer than any other. So, give yourself a big lift. Treat yourself to a long-lasting Hazel Bishop lipstick. Get it at any cosmetic counter in an exciting new shade that's most becoming to you, most flattering.
Back now to This Is Your Life, Gregor Shelkan of Boston, Massachusetts. And we pick up your story in Riga, Latvia in 1938. Riga, a picturesque medieval city of 400,000 souls, for centuries the cultural capital of the Baltic provinces. This is home to you, Gregor. This is your native land, independent and prosperous, free from the brutal hand of Nazis. For the time being, that is. And here there's an appreciative audience waiting for you. Here your singing career has room to grow.
In 1940, Gregor won a nationwide contest sponsored by the Riga National Opera.
You remember that voice out of your past?
Oh yes, that is Lev Aronson.
A dear friend of yours who shared the good days and the evil ones with you. You knew him as the first cellist of the Libau Philharmonic Orchestra. He's now the first cellist with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, Lev Aronson, and here he is, Mr. Aronson.
I recognize you.
Real pals of the bygone days. Did winning that contest lead to anything for Gregor, Mr. Aronson?
Oh, yes, indeed it did. He became the leading tenor of the opera and was acclaimed all over the country as a concert singer, as well as the opera singer.
Now, Lev, let's show him. Look over there, Gregor. These are the actual Latvian posters heralding your concert appearance, you see? Well, the future looked bright for Gregor Shelkan, didn't it, Mr. Aronson?
It sure did, but it dimmed a little bit when the Russians occupied Latvia on the 17th of June 1940, and unfortunately blacked out completely on the 1st of July 1941 when the Nazis took over the country.
By November of that year, all the Jews in Riga were rounded up and confined to the ghetto. And it's here that you learn that, with the exception of your two sisters in Israel, your whole family has been liquidated.
I was among those confined to the ghetto in Riga, and I can honestly say that I owe my very life to Gregor Shelkan.
Whose voice is that, Gregor? As he said, he was one of the 38,000 Riga Jews the Nazis packed into the ghetto. He's now co-owner of D&M Lumber Products Company in New York City, Mr. David Packen. Here he is, David Packen. Oh, just how did Gregor here save your life, Mr. Packen?
Gregor and I were both working at the German Army headquarters in Riga. He is a watchmaker, of course, and I is a carpenter.
There's that watch repairing business again. Well, what happened then?
Well, while working there, I cut my hand on a skill saw, and I was taken to the infirmary of the ghetto. And because Gregor was repairing watches for the German officers, so he had the chance to find out that all those unable to work in the ghetto are going to be liquidated.
Yes. So, so what did he do?
So he got work to as many of our people as he could to report for heavy work. He bribed a German soldier, and he got into the infirmary to warn and help me. He risked his life being there, and he got some clothes for me. He got me out of there. Shortly after we left, a few hours after we left, the rest of them were taken to the gas chamber Auschwitz. And that's why I owe my life to Gregor Shelkan. God bless you and your family.
Thank you, David Packen. Thank you. Thank you, David. Now, you, Mr. Aronson, and Gregor stayed together pretty much, didn't you, in spite of all the terror and the confusion of the Nazi occupation of Latvia?
Yes, we did. We went together to the concentration camp of Kaiserwald. And when the Russians advanced against Latvia, we went on a small boat, 3,000 people together, like cattle crowded in a small compartment. We were evacuated from Latvia to the concentration camp of Stutthof, Danzig.
You were on that prison ship, Gregor, during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Hebrew sacred days of penitence. Around you are the sick and the dying, bound together by common tragedy and common faith. Not since before the Exodus from Egypt, nearly 4,000 years ago, have the children of Israel faced such travail. It was only natural then that you, Gregor Shelkan, in this hour of great need, raise your voice to God, singing the traditional Hebrew liturgy of the Day of Atonement, Kol Nidre. Now listen, Gregor Shelkan, there is your own voice, as it may have sounded that night. This morning, when you made that record, you thought you were doing it as a souvenir for a friend. I think we fooled him, Lev. Well, we'll see that your friend gets the record. I know he'll treasure it for a lifetime. Thank you, Lev Aronson. We're grateful, too, to the conductor of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, Walter Handel, for permitting you to be with us tonight. Thank you. How long altogether were you confined in various concentration camps, Gregor?
About close to 5 years.
It was
ghetto and concentration camp, close about 5 years, I would say.
Yes, it was at Stutthof that you were forced to take part in the so-called race of death. You want to explain that for us?
The race of death, when people came to Stutthof camp to look for workers, for prison workers, the first test, you had to run about 200 yards to prove that you could still run, that your health is at least that you could work another couple months. And there with my friend, Lev Aronson, they called all kinds of professions, but we didn't know all these professions, but you had to be a professional man to do any job. You had to say everything yes. So we made a race, but afterwards we didn't know what to do. So we waited for a call, and then they called electric mechanic and welder. and we decided we both run out as specialists as well.
Yes. And those who couldn't make the 200 meters were sent on.
Couldn't make the set aside, and they went to the crematorium.
With the approach of the Russian army in the winter of 1944-45, you and your fellow prisoners were made to march 300 miles from Bugraben to Guttendorf concentration camp. How long did it take you to do that?
Oh, I think we marched about 2 weeks and lost a lot of people.
With only an occasional crust of bread for food and melted snow for drink. Liberated by the Russians in March 1945, your ordeal is far from over. You and your friend, Lev Aronson, are thrown in a Russian prison, suspected of being spies. You manage to make your escape, and with forged papers furnished by the underground in Warsaw, you finally reach the relative haven of Schlachtensee, displaced persons camp in Berlin. Cured of your malnutrition and typhus, you're well enough to entertain the American occupation forces, and this is in 1946.
Grisha sang so beautifully, so tenderly, that I cried all through the concert. Afterwards, I went to him and thanked him.
Oh, you recognize that voice, don't you, Gregor? At that time, she was assigned to be press secretary to General Lucius Clay. Now she's your wife, Birdie, and the mother of your two lovely children, Tamar Leah, age 4, and Deborah Ruth, 18 months. Here they are, right here. Mommy and the daughters. Come on, you sit over in here, Birdie. You sit right over there. Take Deborah. Whoops.
Never made a trip alone.
Aren't they? How do they make the trip alone? Oh, don't you worry about these kids. They can take care of themselves. Mommy was with them, of course. There you are. That's it. Was it love at first sight for you two, Birdie?
Just about. Although he spoke no English and I spoke no German. But we were married in Berlin, February 21st, 1947.
Yes.
The funny thing, though, was I was one of the first American women to marry a displaced person. And so they classified Grisha as my dependent. And I still kid him about it, especially at income tax time.
5 months later, as you steam into New York Harbor, you have your first sight of the Statue of Liberty. Symbol to you, Gregor Shelkan, as to countless millions before you, of a welcoming America. Unable to speak English, Gregor, it isn't easy to get started, is it?
No.
What was your first job here? Watch repair. Once again, the trade you learned as a youngster in Libau, Latvia, stands you in good stead. But the dream born of your golden voice will not be denied. Only this time, out of gratitude and faith, you determined to devote your talent to God. In March 1948, thanks to a letter written by Rabbi Michael Abramowitz, and with the help of your friend, David Putterman, cantor of the Park Avenue Synagogue of New York, and executive vice president of the Cantors Assembly of America, and the confidence in you of Rabbi Israel Kazis and Professor Brzozowski, you're appointed cantor of Temple Mishkan Tefillah in Boston. Isn't that wonderful? Well, this is your life, Cantor Gregor Shelkan. And of all the hearts that sing with those of your family and friends gathered here tonight, there are two that sing with greater joy than all the others. They belong to your two sisters, Mrs. Bluma Weiner and Mrs. Golda Carmy, whom you have not seen since they left Latvia over 20 years ago. Hazel Bishop has brought them here tonight, Gregor. So here they are, your two sisters, Bluma and Golda from Israel. And here they are. Mighty beautiful, wonderful sisters, Gregor. Well, thanks to you wonderful people.
Only happen in the United States. Only in the United States.
Well, this is your life, Cantor Shelkan. The dream born in your Latvian childhood, brutally interrupted by Hitler's doctrine of hate and prejudice, is now fulfilled. At last here in America, you become a citizen of your adopted country February 14th, 1949, and we know that you'll be a productive and inspiring member of our society. Well, why don't you sit here, Gregor? Golda, you sit, and Bluma, you too, right over here. You sit down, Gregor, and they'll sit on the chair. That's it. My goodness. They're beautiful, lovely, lovely sisters. Now, for a look into your Hazel Bishop future, right after the show, Cantor Shelkan, your family and friends here will gather with you at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, where Hazel Bishop has arranged a party in your honor, so that we'll be able to give you a permanent record of this night's events. Hazel Bishop is presenting you with a 16mm sound film. of this program, together with a 16-millimeter Bell & Howell sound projector, and so that you can keep a record of your growing children and all, why, here's a Bell & Howell 16-millimeter movie camera right there. For your lovely wife, as a memento of this occasion, Hazel Bishop has asked Marshall Jewelers of New York to design this 14-carat gold charm bracelet, with each charm representing a memorable event in your life. You hear this, and now it's coming true. They say, oh, my, I hear it over the air. To think it's happening to me. Oh, to match your, the beauty of the bracelet, Mrs. Shelkan, here's a Hazel Bishop lipstick. And for you, Gregor, in memory of the trade of watch repairing, which played such an important role throughout your life, here's an appropriately engraved gold Bulova watch, a gift that will take you through the rest of your life there. Now, we have one final surprise for you in your future, but you're just a little upset here. I'm going to let you just take a minute to breathe, if you will.
Girls, let me ask you this question. Haven't you often wished that you could give yourself a manicure at home like the kind you get in a beauty shop, one that looks so much better and lasts so much longer? Well, today you can be sure of getting professional results at home simply by following the example of over 25,000 manicurists and over 10 million women who've already switched to Hazel Bishop long-lasting nail polish. They've discovered, as you will, that Hazel Bishop polish stays on beautifully 3 to 5 days longer. Even if you pound a typewriter all day long, or as a housewife, keep putting your hands in hot soapy water.
That's right, Bob. And the secret is this. Only Hazel Bishop polish is made with a new wonder-working ingredient which sets it to a hard, diamond-like finish that resists chipping and peeling, keeps its sparkling brilliance all week long.
So, be smart. Be thrifty, too. Treat yourself to a long-lasting Hazel Bishop manicure at your beauty shop, or get an economical bottle of Hazel Bishop long-lasting nail polish at your favorite cosmetic counter.
Thank you, Bob. Now, finally, Cantor Shelkan, we know that in devoting your life to God, you turned your back on what might easily have become a lucrative professional singing career with continuing vocal lessons, raising a family, and providing a home for them. There isn't too much left over for even such a major necessity as a car. Well, Hazel Bishop has an answer to that problem in the form of these keys to a brand new 1954 Mercury from Coal Finder of Chicago, the world's largest Mercury dealer. This is your live Cantor Gregor Shelkan of Libau, Latvia, and Boston, Massachusetts, the boy who learned watch repairing while he dreamed of singing so that he could serve God better in his temple. Thank you, Cantor Gregor Shelkan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's new. Hazel Bishop's tempting, tantalizing, kiss-inviting new shade, Soft Pink. Prettiest pink of all. See, wear, love. Hazel Bishop Soft Pink.